Hello everyone and welcome to the I'll Try That podcast. This week we have a special guest, a budding beer buddy of Barber joining us in. Hello Barber, welcome.
Hi fellas, hi everyone.
I love the fact you just waved.
Well, why not? It meant something to you, Simo. That's the main thing. Yeah, thanks for having me on. What a pleasure.
Now I have to really kind of tip my hat to the background that you've done in your room right now. You have a very fantastic sign that says "Drink beer, save water." And, we're all about the environmental, the kind of helpfulness that breweries and beer can do and the beer category can do. So I'm really pleased that you're kind of really leaning into that.
My whole habitat is built around that sort of similar mise en scène of enjoying beer and just being generally sound. So hopefully that comes across in the podcast as well.
And for those people that don't know what mise en scène is, Rich, do you mind giving us the breakdown, please, of mise en scène?
Oh God. Yes,
I'm glad you didn't ask me, actually.
Isn't it just the general vibe Barber puts across? And his general outlook on life?
Isn't it design? Isn't it stage design?
I think that's where it comes from, Simo. But you can extrapolate to your own environment, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like mine is a bit more uncouth than yours.
This is more homeless.
How has this happened? We're literally like 30 seconds in.
Broken the first rule.
Exactly. So, Barber, we're really pleased that you could join us for this week's episode and walk us through. Now, I hear you have a hot topic prepared for us.
Indeed. It's a bit of bad news, sadly. You may have seen over the weekend a little piece by the BBC. In the wake of COVID-19, it appears that all the closures to the pubs are going to result in a loss, just in terms of waste, of somewhere in the region of 87 million pints of beers.
Oh, travesty. Absolute travesty. Now, we have talked right at the very start, and it's very kind of acute that we come back to this. We're almost a year into COVID now, and I think very at the start of the podcast, we did do, we had a kind of a news article of just Wales, that they were losing us however many millions, I've forgotten the exact number of millions of pints, but the fact that, what was that number, Barbs? 87 million?
87 million, and I feel I should qualify that, as I understand it, that's just from lockdown 3.0. I think lockdown, the first, was something like 70 million, and the second lockdown, I think around 50. So cumulatively, that's even more heartbreaking. Sales, they probably think that's about £331 million.
Wow.
Woo! Yeah, so there's a bit about it's basically the beer that's been made in over the last 12 months, and because with the pasteurised beers like your lagers, pubs have probably got 3 or 4 months before they need to send it back to the brewery to be disposed of. Whereas with your what's the word, your ales and all that sort of stuff, you've got more like 6 to 9 weeks. But either way, a bit of a shame, obviously.
That is hugely disappointing to hear. But I believe there was a slight, it's not, there's a little bit of good news that did come out from this. I believe it was either Lidl or Aldi had purchased a large stockpile of the alcohol that was going to go out and was selling it for 99p a bottle in their stores. So they brought it back, rebottled it and pushed it back out for 99p. So I probably can't save all of that lost beer, but there is a little bit of redemption coming in there that we can get cheap booze, and they have managed to save a bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to force a lot of beer companies and breweries to think, outside the box, trying to think of new ideas of how to help with that waste reduction. Because as you said, these are, the brewing process is happening, and, you can't really predict these events, that are happening right now, like a third lockdown coming in. I mean, we just weren't expecting that to happen, especially at the timing when it did. So the beer was already being made. So it's up to the breweries and it's up to the governments and up to people to figure out other ways of using it. I know we have talked before about, potentially, other ways of dealing with residue beer, over beer. I mean, I had the idea of shampoo, which was not a great idea. I grant you that. But, that was an idea nonetheless.
I think I've got an idea that's a little bit out there, but I think would be pretty good.
Go.
Swimming pools.
Ooh, tell us more, Rich.
As an IBer, I think that's a bad idea.
I was going to say, imagine, not like really deep ones, because that could end in disaster, but going for a bath or a swim in beer. I think it could be quite refreshing and a bit different.
It sounds like you might not be the only person who's had this idea, because this article was broken down to the 87 million pints would fill about 20 Olympic swimming pools.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
So
I like that you're on the same wavelength as the BBC right now, Rich. You and the BBC are so in tune with how you can use this wastage. I love that.
I've heard that of you guys, there is also a fan of the word viscosity, but beer may be more viscous than water. If you go and train in an Olympic-sized swimming pool full of beer, is the resistance higher, and would that make you a better swimmer?
Well, there we go. I could then train for the Olympics.
Well, if it's a higher viscosity, then it would be easier to go through than water, because if higher viscosity means you can just get it's more watery. But that doesn't make any sense because your base level is water, so it doesn't make any sense. So is it a higher viscosity or is it a lower viscosity? I don't know.
You mean like air?
But like the only problem is, like, most swimming pools are like slightly heated. So all I'm saying is you would be in lukewarm, stale lager beer mixed with ale and stouts, and it would be the worst colour to swim through, I feel, possible.
Figured this out. Outside Lido.
And Simo, I understand, will flatly refuse to swim in anything apart from chilled beer. It's got some standards.
Yeah.
So there better be there needs to be ice cubes, or some sort of system to keep that beer cold. So if you do accidentally drink it, it tastes all right.
Well, I think we can all agree that probably that's not going to happen anytime soon, but we'd love to see other opportunities and ideas that breweries are using for that wastage, and making sure that beer wastage is used for a second life, a new usage.
Well, if anyone's listening and has a spare swimming pool, let us know, and we'll try and put these things together.
Or we can do something that actually gets people to engage with us and say, if you have ideas of what they can do with those beers wastage, please comment it. Not if you have a swimming pool and want to fill it with beer.
Are you saying our demographic doesn't have swimming pools?
I'm exactly saying our demographic doesn't have swimming pools. I think we've thoroughly exhausted that hop topic. Let's jump straight in to the pursuit of hoppiness. And this week we are traveling to Brooklyn Brewery in New York, New York. And obviously a place that is very close to my heart, having lived in Brooklyn for 5 years. And I must say the many trips that I took to Brooklyn Brewery were always a lot of fun. Like it was just down the road from where I was. It was in Williamsburg. And there was always, especially the summer months, and the summers in New York seem to last a long time, which is great. It's kind of the periods that you can spend outside in beer gardens. And Brooklyn Brewery always had a line around the block, if not around 2 blocks, all down the old Kent Road. So I have a really soft spot for Brooklyn Brewery, in that it's for me, it's the local beer, that I know from Brooklyn, but actually it is a well exported beer. You can get Brooklyn Brewery and Brooklyn beers in a lot of different countries right now. And the main driver behind that is because they are in partnership with Carlsberg, our friendly friends over at Carlsberg. And Carlsberg have the distribution rights to over 9 countries, the main countries that you will find them in. So Scandinavia, the UK, France, a couple of other, Southeast Asia, Australia as well. So you can get literally Brooklyn Brewery around the world. So Brooklyn is being exported through these beers.
So I was just going to say to Joe, like, as a man who's experienced the American and the British, like, buying it in 2 different countries, is the taste different? Great
question. I think that goes back to the age old of, is Guinness better in Ireland than it is in the rest of the world? It is slightly different. I mean, the great thing about it is that you're getting most Brooklyn beers in cans, and cans export incredibly well. So actually, these Brooklyn beers that we are trying are actually brewed by Carlsberg in the UK. So these are local. Although they're Brooklyn Breweries, like, branded, and they're the same recipe that you'll get in the States, these are actually brewed on the UK soil. And that's the perfect thing about having a company like Carlsberg, who is your distributor and manufacturer in these other countries, because they have breweries all around the world. So you get local beers of these exported beers. But yes, I think for me anyway, Brooklyn breweries and getting it fresh from the source, there's nothing better. Going to the brewery itself, getting it from the tap straight from when it's been brewed. I would love one day to go to Dublin, go to St. James's Brewery and just experience the Guinness experience of having it right from the tap. And there are specific pubs, there's a whole list of them that are within a mile of the brewery, which have a rating system of how good their Guinness actually is. And it's not just about how fresh the beer is, it's about how they pour it and the kind of the situational stuff that those specific pubs do. So there is definitely that element when it comes to Brooklyn as well. Like, you can go to some of the many bars in Brooklyn and have a different Brooklyn beer experience than if you go to other bars as well.
What feels like a long time ago to me, it must have been about 2014, drinking Brooklyn lager in the Swiss Alps. And it was a particular bar. I remember there weren't dozens of options, but there was sorry. A choice was Carlsberg or Brooklyn. And I don't want to say anything to disparage Carlsberg, but I was really glad that Brooklyn was the other option, because that was really, really nice drop, I think.
And now it makes a lot more sense that they have Carlsberg on tap at the same time as Brooklyn, because that pub was distributed by Carlsberg. But actually, I think going back to the drinking occasion, Barbs, how would you have taken your Brooklyn lager in the Swiss Alps?
It would have been, I think, basically, it used to be like, in the rest of continental Europe, where you've either got small or large. So large, normally 500 ml, so, almost a pint. And the Brooklyn was, I want to say it was like 5 Swiss francs for a large, which is probably a season-air price, but it was then like $4.50 for a Carlsberg, and I was sort of always happy to go for a Brooklyn, even as a poor season-air.
Barb's just asking, like, so you would, if you saw a Carlsberg and you saw Brooklyn, it was like there was no other choice but to go Brookers, basically.
Yeah, I think actually it may even have actually come in after a little while, and I just had a lot of Carlsberg, and then I was like, oh wow, I can now have Brooklyn. But yeah, I'd lean towards it, because I almost was a bit like, what's that? That's a ratio of like 9/10, isn't it? I'd almost say, well, actually, I'd rather have 9 Brooklyns than 10 Carlsbergs, personally.
So I don't know about you, Bob, but when I certainly had when I was talking about like that, even in Brooklyn, you can have a different experience with the Brooklyn beer. And it was always put on a pedestal if the bar had frozen glassware that you would then get the beer poured into. Because then it was just that extra, kind of like coolness, it was, and also that when you kind of have a frozen glass touch your lips with a cold beer inside, straight from the tap, it just was on another level.
Yeah, and to that end, being as I am on Britain's leading beer review and news podcast, I have chilled myself a chalice to enjoy the beer from. To be honest, you might make the argument that it's February at the moment, and that might not be completely necessary, but it is taking me back a little bit like that. So it adds to the experience, like you say.
You know what I'm really, really enjoying is Barber talking about his experience in the Swiss Alps and drinking in a bar and stuff like that. And as we know, Swiss is notoriously a more expensive place, especially in the ski resorts. He's bringing it back to our general demographic of people who have swimming pools.
Yeah, you're more likely to find a straw poll in a Swiss bar that have people who are willing to do this swimming pool idea.
Also, all I have to say is the fact that he has, in a sentence, put chilled chalice in there is just epic of every proportion.
That took about half an hour of warm up before I came on. Chilled chalice, yeah.
So, how old, Joe? How old is Brooklyn beers? Does anybody know?
Yeah, so Brooklyn's actually it's been a staple in the US, and specifically in Brooklyn, since 1987. So it's been around for a very long time. Started out by a guy named Hindi, who's well known in the craft beer industry, in the brewing industry itself. But what you might know, or kind of know Brooklyn for, is all the gas the lager gives you. So what you might know a bit more about the beer,
Joe, that is you. Like every episode, every time we have lager, it's like.
So what you might recognise, and obviously what is so distinctive about Brooklyn beers, is its look and feel. So it's got this roundel with the kind of like the kind of drawn in B. Really nice kind of crafted B on the inside. It's got Brooklyn lager. The one that I'm having is the lager. I know we've got different ones that we're going to be whizzing through as a review today. And then they've got these two kind of holding shapes at the top, which has the product information, like where it's from and the ABV, etc., and the product name. This actually comes from world-renowned designer and legend within the design industry, Milton Glaser. So Milton Glaser did the, Rich, what did Milton Glaser, was he well known for?
The I Heart New York logo. So, the world famous, all the T-shirts, all the hats and everything like that. He was the actual designer of that. That's pretty much, everybody any tourist who visits New York seems to end up with one of those T-shirts and stuff like that. So to be able to claim that is a pretty impressive thing. Also, it's quite simple.
Yeah, but I think that's the great thing about design. Simple design is so impactful when done well. It's hard to do simple design. It really is. Like, to do something like that, it's as you said, it's just having the idea to do it. So anyway, so Milton was commissioned by Hindi to work with him on this new brewery, this Brooklyn Brewery, and it has become this kind of the roundel that, the cursive B in this roundel shape is so synonymous with Brooklyn Brewery and, any of their beers that it can be seen all around the world. And the fact that they've now been able to kind of make this work and flex, so we're using different color by having slightly different type, but people still recognize these equities as being and attributing them to being Brooklyn Brewery means that, it's got that recognition with people. The design works so well that consumers know what this product is, even if you were to remove the word Brooklyn from the shape.
I would say, I've never had a Brooklyn beer before this episode. I never really knew about them, but I actually always knew the symbol. So, I had no idea who they were. I've always walked, you walk past them kind of thing. But the symbol I've recognised and it's identifiable. I was like, oh, so this is who they are. This is what that scrawly bee is for. So I find that quite interesting.
I think I'd seen it on a T-shirt before too. As in before drinking the beer, almost. Case in point.
Joe, by the way, everyone, Joe has just shown off his jumper which has this logo on it.
Yeah, I've got to rep the Brooklyn Brewery. But I think also just going back to it, they are very consistent when it comes to things like the cans and the logos. So the lager is the one that started it all up. Yeah, it's fine. We can just cut Barber's. He's getting this other chalice. He's getting his frozen chalice.
I see. Sorry, listeners. There was just a huge commotion, but it was Barber getting his frozen chalice out the freezer. So,
Barbs, you need to take a photo of that for us. I think
I can do that. So hang fire. Because also, I noticed you guys have got the cans. The design of your cans is for the Brooklyn Lager is a little bit different to mine. I bought this 4-pack, and I was pretty blown away by the witchcraft of. Instead of a plastic ring, thing that's holding it together, it is a weird sort of glue setup.
Oh no, I'm really pleased you brought that up, Babs. As we know, reduction of plastic is what all the beer companies are trying to do, and the whole world is on this kind of push. Carlsberg have pioneered this, especially with their 4 and 6 packs, by having inventing a special adhesive glue that basically sticks all of the cans together, but then can be with a twist, can be broken apart. So all of the cans that Barber has right now don't need a secondary, it's what's called a secondary case, to put them on. They're basically just glued together.
That's really, really nifty.
And it's got a little holdall at the top, like a paper holdall, whereas I have the 4-pack of the lagers as well, and mine come in a secondary case. So obviously it's not used everywhere exclusively, but look at the design. The secondary case design on mine is what Barber has on his cans, because obviously they're losing. So
I've got it now. I think this is perfect timing to talk about the taste, boys, of the original lager, the original one. So I've managed to get hold of the original one quite easily, in fact. I think Drabbo's the same, Joe's the same, and Barb's is about to crack in. So I think it's worth, if everyone has a sip and has a go.
Actually, if I'm honest, I haven't heard Drabbo's tell about his sniffing yet. I think I need to hear Rich's nose and what he wants to weigh in on this.
It definitely smells like a lager.
So insightful.
I'm just going to say, from my initial sniff, there is nothing that's blowing me away with the smell of it, sort of thing. There's nothing. It smells very generic. If I was going to get smells like other lagers that we have out there, there's nothing I'm finding that's giving me a particular different aroma from it.
Right, Barb's thoughts.
I kind of get what Rich is going for with the smell, but I take a sip and it really takes me back to having had it in the past. And I suppose if you've got fond memories, particularly of a place, and you have that helps with your enjoyment of the beer. But I just like it because it's just a bit more bold and a bit more going on. it doesn't even really I don't even think it is a lager personally, because you're so ingrained with what lagers are like. Well, I don't want to say it, but those standard lagers, it's just got a lot more going on. There's a lot more depth of flavour for me.
Well, I agree. I think, Brooklyn is readily available. I don't think there's a doubt in that. I think it's definitely a, exported macro level at this point, but it's got that full flavour. I'm getting that. I mean, they refer to it as a hoppy amber lager, and I'd say that is an amazing descriptor, just even on the can, of what this beer tastes like. It does taste more crafty. It doesn't taste like your average beer. I'd always say, like, when you sip into a Brooklyn lager, that you get what you pay for, in that it might be a little bit more expensive as you experience in the Alps, Barb, but it has that extra punch. It has that, and it's not punched in the case that it's, it is 5.2% ABV, so it's that little bit more expensive, more ABV level, higher ABV than the other one. But, it's got more of a taste and flavour to it. So, if you're having, I'll pitch you, a day on it. If you're out at like a nice rooftop garden in Brooklyn, what are your choices? You can probably have a Modelo with a wedge of lime on it. Very nice, crisp, refreshing, beautiful in the sunshine. You could probably have, a really unfiltered, pasteurized, kind of quite like, craft, really highly crafted ale, and that's going to be really delicious, but probably about, $10, and, will probably kind of knock your socks off. It'll probably be about an 8%. Always just turn to a Brooklyn lager, which is probably in the middle. It's more crafted and more kind of flavorful than a nice crisp Modelo, but at the same time, it's not going to blow your socks off. Whereas like an unfiltered, pasteurized kind of beer, crafted ale might do.
The two words that kind of come to my mind is heavy. So I feel like compared to other lagers, it does feel kind of heavier. However, I do also say that it's more memorable than other lagers. So as in, I am tasting it and going, this is not like other like staples that you can get hold of, but it also feels a little bit heavier than those. Like, as in, yes, it's refreshing in the taste, but it's not light. I wouldn't call it a light lager. I would call it a heavier lager, but it's still lovely. And I actually, as a lager, I'm not a big lager man, and the fact that I've enjoyed it is a good sign.
Yeah, I'd say this is almost, to coin a phrase of my dad, basically, I would say this is a step towards proper beer from a lager. I think kind of similar to what Sim was saying about the relative heft of it. It's kind of like, I probably wouldn't go for it necessarily if I was like really hot, sunny day in the summer. Maybe, a nice sunset time, as Joe's wonderfully depicting. But actually, to be honest, again, maybe it's me being in the habit of having it in a ski resort. I don't know, it kind of works for me at a slightly lower temperature.
Now, I will read out to you how Brooklyn describe their lager on their website. Now, you guys tell me if you picked up on all of these different descriptors and how they describe it, okay? So, this is their award-winning amber lager. Brooklyn Lager unites flavors of toffee, toast, and caramel, or as the Americans say, caramel, with a dry hopped aroma full of grapefruit, flowers, and pine. Whether it's your favorite pint glass, a trusty bottle, or versatile can, Brooklyn Lager is the beer for the job. If you're looking for the dry hopped amber lager that changed the world, look no further.
Did you just say toast?
Toast, yeah, I did. Well done on picking up on that, because that also to me went, huh? Toast?
Toast? I was just like, not at any point did I get toast while I was drinking that beer.
What's on the toast?
That's a good point.
Actually, to be fair, I've never enjoyed toast by just being toast. There has to be at least butter.
That is true. If you're just eating dry toast, you're having a bad time.
On a seriously bad day if you can't even muster the energy to put butter on toast.
I've not reached that point in lockdown yet. I've had many lows in lockdown, but not butterless toast is not a low I've reached.
For me, it's much better. Like, eating just bread by itself is much better than just toasting it. Like,
well, no, I mean, if you just got bread, you'd do something with it, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just eat
no.
dry.
But as in, if you had a choice of just plain bread or plain toast, you have to go bread because it's got more moisture to it.
It depends on what time of day it is. In the morning, I'll probably take dry toast. Right, let's talk about some of the other beers.
No, let's talk about toast.
So we've definitely covered off the lager. Right, who's got another beer that we want to talk about?
I've got the Defender's IPA that I'd like to talk about. So I want to talk about the Defender, the IPA Defender from Brooklyn. Basically, the logo design is the same, so as in the symbolism of the circle with the scrawly lettering. But then they have this absolutely wacky IPA kind of like coming through the bottom. It's bright red, yellow, blue. Like, it's just completely different. The color scheme is absolutely bonkers. And it kind of gives you a completely different vibe. It's almost like you go from like the traditional vibe to like, I don't want to say hippie because that makes me sound like I'm 50, but like that kind of vibe. And the taste is remarkably different.
So this is their staple IPA. This is like if Brooklyn Lager was the first beer, then the Defender was a very close second. So this is their IPA staple.
I prefer this like 100%. This is definitely my cup of tea. This is absolute wicked golden IPA. I feel like if you like the original, you're gonna drool.
What percentage is that, Simo?
This is a 5.5. So it's only a little bit more stronger, but it does, obviously, because it's an IPA, it does taste completely different. It is drying my mouth out a little bit more than I kind of realized after the first few sips, but it is definitely drying my mouth out. But it is I definitely say you have to have a go at this one. Have a pop.
Because incidentally, I sourced the lager and the Naranjito orange pale ale in fairly well established supermarkets in the UK. I happened to be in one of the higher end supermarkets when I found the Brooklyn Lager.
Waitrose.
That's the one. Yeah. Actually, incidentally, I went into we're pretty well sourced where I am. We got 4 breweries in Cheltenham. We've got a number of like quite niche beer shops, and I went into one of them. It's a really good shop, but they didn't have any Brooklyn at all, which I mean maybe makes a point about that it's not such a niche one, but they've got some really weird stuff I'd never even heard of. But when I went into the more luxury supermarket, the thing I noticed, which I believe Rich has been able to source, is completely sold out of the alcohol-free beer. Although I think it's 0.4%.
Oh, so the Brooklyn Special Effect.
So yeah, now I'm on the Naranjito, which you can probably see is obviously a lot lighter. Just looking for it and finding it on a supermarket shelf. Apart from the distinctive sort of green, I would kind of say if you're someone who wears glasses and doesn't have them on you at the time, you'd be struggling to see what this is. There's orange on orange and a bit of blue and green. You recognise probably the Brooklyn, and they've got Naranjito, if that's how we're pronouncing it, a little bit more prominent. But yeah. Oh, and actually, now that I look quite close, it's a limited release. I can tell you that much. But yeah, so I would sort of say, in comparison to that IPA that you have, Simo, not quite as visually striking.
Is it a pale ale? Is it a pale ale or an IPA? I forget which one.
Pale ale.
Do you get the orange, Barbs?
Do you know, I am now that... Yeah, I've gone Naranjito, lager, and now back to Naranjito, and I'm getting it a bit more, and I personally am a bit relieved that it's not really sweet. I was kind of expecting really sort of overpowering sweetness, but actually it's a little drier, and it's I find that a little bit more palatable. I don't know what you think, Rich.
Well, that was it. Yeah, I found I could taste the orange coming through, but it wasn't a massive impact of orange. It wasn't like, oh my god, this tastes like orange juice, or that's all I'm getting through. I was getting a nice subtle hint of it whilst drinking, still being able to get the hoppy flavour and a little bit of like a citrusy tang afterwards. So,
boys, with that Naranjito, sorry, I don't know how to say it, but would you actually have this like regularly, or is this something that you feel like is a nice surprise and it's like that's good, but maybe I'll go back to something else?
It's a little bit more sessionable, I'd say, than the Brooklyn, the Amber Lager. I mean, it is 4.5%. Actually, I'm trying to make the comparison now. Because normally 5.2. So I would say a fair bit more sessionable. And actually, weirdly, converse to what I was saying about the amber earlier on, is actually this does strike me a little bit more as the one sort of really hot, get out of the fridge and you've got it chilled for ages, a little bit more refreshing.
So I'd say, just talking about the wider portfolio of Brooklyn beers, one of my favourite Brooklyn beers, which we don't have as readily available, it's you probably find that in that, Cheltenham craft beer shop, maybe, Barbs, is it's called Sriracha Ace, and it's a farmhouse saison. If you guys have had a saison before, it's like almost like on the path to a sour. But it's nowhere near. I'm personally not a fan of sours. It's a very kind of Marmite taste to sour. Like, you like it or you don't. But a saison is kind of very palatable. It's almost like a kind of a build on, almost kind of like if you're taking like a lager pilsner, but then starting to move it towards that kind of more soured ale. And a Sriracha Ace usually comes in a very tall glass, like it's very, kind of glass bottle with one of these like stoppers, which it has like a metal clasp on it, which you'd then pop, and then the top of it would come off. You might recognize it. I think Tuborg use them quite a lot, and Carlsberg's, when they have them in the bottle, they flip them as well.
Yeah.
Well, like Grolsch. Did Grolsch used to do that?
Yeah.
Don't know what ever happened to Grolsch, but
No, Grolsch is still very much around. Just, they're not the most favourite of most beers. But if you go to places like, we went to Bulgaria skiing, actually, talking about skiing, and Tuborg and Grolsch owned that place, didn't they? It was all you could get was Tuborg and Grolsch.
Massive, yeah.
Actually, I think there was a moment, Trav, didn't we try and freeze the beers in the freezer and then forgot about them, and then in the morning woke up to exploded beers in the freezer?
Yeah, that was that was one of the disasters we had on that ski trip. There were, just beer everywhere.
So, Dravwell, have you got the non-out?
Yeah, so I managed to get my hands on the non-alcoholic Brooklyn beer here, which is coming in at 0.4%. It's called Brooklyn Special Effect. And the bottle itself is kind of like one of those pictures that you look at and then it's always moving. What do you call them?
a magic eye.
Yeah, like a magic eye picture sort of thing. So like you stare at it.
For people on acid.
So it's their alcohol offering that Brooklyn have put out there. And of all the alcohol free we've tried, this is fantastic. Genuinely, like we have tried a lot of non-alcoholic beer, and I'm not going to lie, most of them have been pretty naff. They've not tasted great. They've not tasted that fantastic. But the Brooklyn Special Effect tastes on point.
Joe, that's another lager. That's my theory. Unagi, just saying.
Well, I mean, you weren't here when we did the. I was just thinking, listening back to some of our episodes where you were off either at the gym or you were doing puzzles, and we did try the Infinite Session Ale, which was not a great ale. I'll give you that, but it was okay, wasn't it? But actually, Rich, I look back to it. You absolutely loved the Adnam's Ghost Ship 0.5%, didn't you? You thought that was a very true representation of Adnam's Ale.
Yeah, which it was. But I've got to say, Brooklyn, this lager, good, fantastic. If you're looking, this is one I would try again.
Great, that's great to know. I haven't tried their non-alc yet, so that is definitely high on the list now to go and give that a go.
Supermarket shelves are testifying to that. Sold out. I mean, dry January's over, but it's February. I think what's the February equivalent?
February.
February.
Terrible. Oh no. All right, Joe, have you got the numbers, mate? Have you got the numbers?
Of course they bloody do. Right. So Brooklyn Brewery, this is their US and kind of global account. 172,000 followers on Instagram.
Fair play.
Sugar. That's only a little bit more than us.
And then their their Twitter, they have 130,000 followers. So these guys are kind of a big deal. They've got a big presence. They're well known in a lot of different countries. They've been pushed very hard by just their own marketing teams, but also obviously with the backing of having the distributor manufacturing support and marketing budgets support as well in these different countries of Carlsberg. This is a staple in, a great export from Brooklyn and from the New York area as well. I think most people would wholly and very, very easily wear the Brooklyn brewery kind of merchandise with pride. It is fantastic range of beers, and the lager itself, as we're going to go back to the one that they first originally started, is a very different kind of lager to most what you think of as lagers, but it's definitely worth a try.
Yeah, have a pod.
Agreed.
winner.
And that's all we have time for from this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe,
Rich, and Simo.
Goodbye. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter,
And watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now. Always drink responsibly, and if you or anyone else needs some help, go to drinkaware.co.uk for more information.